Although I'm a landscape photographer, I do like to take pictures of other things, including architecture. I'm not very good at it, and to be honest, a lot of the things I shoot tend to be grab shots as I'm passing something. This example is case in point. I shot it in San Francisco probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, and I captured it with an infrared camera, which is why you're seeing the funny colours on screen at the moment. And this example has been already converted using DxO into a TIFF file. Now I'm not in DxO at the moment, I'm actually in Lightroom, and the reason for this is that I'd started playing about with something called DxO Viewpoint, which tries to correct architectural problems like converging verticals. It is a very good piece of software, but I thought, what does Lightroom actually offer me? Because I know there are some things in the Transform panel which will help you actually correct some perspective problems. So I thought, let's experiment and see what we can do. Now if you look at this image, it's typical of a grab shot. Initially, on first appearance, it looks okay, but if you look at the verticals, they're converging. And another problem, whilst this centre part for the building appears to be central, it's not really, because if you count the number of windows, we've got 1, 2, 3 on this side and 1, 2, 3, 4 on that side. So although I may have it in the centre of the frame, I've not got the camera turned directly square onto the building, and so because of that I'm seeing more of one side than I am of the other. Now I'm never going to be able to correct something so severe in just software, but let's see just what is possible with this. Now the first thing I want to say is that there's two areas that often get confused in Lightroom, which is lens corrections and transform. Lens corrections are just trying to take out the distortion that your lens creates, so things like pin cushioning and barreling. If you go to the manual section, you can see, using the distortion, what that does. Now I'm just going to reset that because I've already taken out the lens distortion using DxO. And the reason I did this in DxO is that the lens profiles in there, to my mind, are actually a lot more powerful than the ones in Lightroom, and they seem to make a much better job of correcting this. With this particular lens, Lightroom still leaves a bit of barrel distortion, whereas DxO has eradicated it. Now what I'm going to do is use this transform tool, which is further down, and I'm going to use this to square up the building and try and remove the converging verticals. I could use the auto option, but it's being a little bit lazy and you'll never get quite as good a result as if you do this manually. The tool I'm going to use in here is this guided version. Now as soon as I click guided, this little tool here becomes enabled. You can click it to pick it up, and you can also click it again to put it down. And what this allows me to do when it's enabled is I can pick a section of the building and click on it. So as I'm moving my cursor around, you should be able to see that there's a square magnified section of the image. So I'll put my first point there and I'll drag down to another point in line with it, or which should be in line. Now the line I've just drawn should actually be vertical because all the windows align in this building. And now I'm going to do the same on the other side. So again, I'll just click once to put my mark in, and then I'll drag down and position it. Now once I've added two of these lines, Lightroom has already taken care of removing the converging verticals. Next thing I want to do is actually line up some of these windows. So I'm going to pick first off a window over on this side. Again, I'll pick into the corner, and I'm going to line that up with the corresponding window on this side. And now I'm going to do the same with another window here. And that should go into the window here, which is slightly out of frame. What I've been able to do there is actually square up the building quite well, but it's still not quite right. Let's go and drop the tool down, and now, although we're square, we can actually make further adjustments using these options here. Now, one of the things when we actually added the corrections was that the image gets distorted, and we can change that again by using this aspect ratio here. And that allows us to see more of the image at the top and also at the bottom. Once you've done that, you can actually move the image around within the frame. That really is, on the right side of the image, about as far as I can go, but on the left side I could go further. One of the things we can do now is we can actually rotate the image a bit further. And now what we're seeing is that the image, rather than having 4 windows on this side, has now got 3, although it's still not quite perfect. I'm also starting to see the edge of the frame coming in here. Now, I could use this constrain crop option, but I'm not going to. Instead, I'm going to maneuver the image around a little bit further. Again, I'm going to reach for my guides here, and you can already see how these have started to be moved out of shape. What I'm going to do is now pick new points on here and move them around again. And as I do that, the building starts to square up again. And again, I can change the aspect ratio, and I can also move the offset, and I can move the vertical offset as well, and I can scale further. Now let's try and move these around a little bit further, so we'll leave that one there, and we'll pick this option here. And although the image doesn't square up perfectly yet, it's actually improving it every time. And now I'm starting to get some of the image more or less lined up. It's not perfect yet, but it's now looking a lot better than it was. I'll just improve the scale again. And although the image isn't perfectly in the middle yet, we're actually starting to see 3 windows in roughly a symmetrical shape on the image. And we can distort that a little bit further to improve things. And now, although we haven't got a perfectly square image, we're actually seeing a lot better result. So this is rather a bit of an iterative process here, but ultimately you can actually achieve an awful lot. Now, if I compare this to the Viewpoint software that I've been using, actually it's almost as powerful, and in some ways it's possibly even more powerful, because it seems to give a lot more freedom when I come to actually adjust the images. And certainly by moving around on the image, you can actually create some rather weird and wacky distortions. But overall, you can achieve a good symmetrical image, although, as I said at the beginning, I'm never going to be able to correct something that's as completely skewed as this building, but it's created more symmetry than was there in the initial image, and it's certainly a lot better. So if I just show you the previous image on this, we'll reset it, and we undo that now, and you can see the difference. So there's a substantial difference there between what we had at the beginning and what we had at the end. Again, you can see that. So overall, I'm probably not going to upgrade to the Viewpoint software from DxO. It's rather expensive compared to the tools I've already got available in Lightroom. I hope you found that useful. I'm Robin Whalley. You've been watching Lenscraft. I'll see you next time for another video.
Bye.